very excited right now to be joined by the seventh-year head coach of the UNC Asheville Bulldogs, head baseball coach Scott Friedholm. Coach, how are you this morning?
Doing well, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the show. And as we talked about a little earlier, I'm sorry I missed last year. So I'm excited to get on and talk about not only college baseball in North Carolina, but also UNC Asheville. So thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on. It's a honor to have you. And, just there's such tremendous baseball in the state of North Carolina. And just talk about that, first of all, being able to try to build that UNC Asheville program into something that it's not been. And, having so many quality high school programs around the state of North Carolina and also in the region.
Yeah. And that's been, the challenge since we moved here. With so many, I think there's 17 Division I colleges, baseball programs in North Carolina, and they're all very, very good. So when we took over here about 6 years ago, UNC Asheville was not necessarily the sexy school in the state, and we're trying to change that, and we're trying to build on some of the success we've had in the past, not only on the field but with some facility changes. So we're getting out to places in the last 2 or 3 years that we haven't been able to get to. So we're feeling like we're taking the right step in the state as far as some of the recruits we're getting, and obviously a lot of it has to do with some facilities and the belief in what we're trying to do here as a program. But it is always going to be an uphill challenge here for us at Asheville with the other 17 or whatever that number is, D1 schools in the state, especially with all the different conferences in the state. It's hard to be a part of, what is quote unquote the mid majors when, you have the ACC and the Conference USA and some of the bigger conferences, but it's exciting to be a part of it, and a lot of great programs and a lot of great coaches in the state.
Yeah, there definitely is no shortage of quality programs and coaches in the state of North Carolina as well as the region. But just talk about, Coach, and you talk about how you are faced with an uphill battle there at UNC Asheville. But talk about some of the things you've done, maybe thinking outside the box and drawing on the tremendous city that you have there with Asheville, and trying to attract baseball talent to a place where there hasn't been much success, and then also a place where you're fighting the cold weather battle.
Yeah, well, the cold weather battle is when you're talking to a guy from Boston. I mean, it's not cold here. Yesterday it was 70 degrees. Today it's 60 degrees, and we're in the middle of January, towards the end of January. So we generally are in the low 50s right now. So we're able to be on the field most of the time. Some of the battles is, the hard part for us is there is a lot of local talent in the mountains with some AC and TC and some of the buncones. So there's some talent, but we're struggling getting them. And I don't blame these kids. They want to get away for their college experience. So they tend to go off the mountain and head down to Greensboro or head out to Wilmington or to Charlotte, those types of things. So we've been having a little bit of success about that 2.5 hour range away from us in that Greensboro, Charlotte, Wake Forest area. And now we're starting to, our university has allowed us in the last year to start getting some junior college transfers, where our first 5 years here, it was kind of frowned upon because of the academics. So we've had a couple junior college and a couple transfers come into the program over the last 2 years that last year I think was about to make some headway with us. And then obviously we got shut down. So it's hopefully this year those guys will be able to help us out, and they're in some key spots with whether it be a pitcher or a shortstop that is transferred in. So we're excited about what those guys can do for us as well. And then we're starting to get some better quality North Carolina high school kids to come out of high school to commit here as well. So we just have to keep doing a good job of keeping our guys here and getting them better, because we're not Duke, we're not UNC, we're not NC State. We're not getting those elite type of players out of high school, but we need to develop them into elite type of players for us when they get here. So that's always going to be our goal, is to develop them once they get here over those 4 years.
Prior to arriving at UNC Asheville, you spent time at Navy, Maine, also Boston College in the ACC as pitching coach as well as recruiting coordinator. So have you been able to draw on some of those ties, maybe pull some kids out of the Mid-Atlantic or Northeast regions?
Yeah, early on we had success in the Northeast, the New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. One of the reasons is the type of education that's here at UNC Asheville. And when people do a little bit of research, they find out that it's a pretty high quality or high caliber education. And then the cost for out of state is still fairly reasonable. I think out of state right now we're at about 38,000, but if you go up to the Northeast, if you go to Rutgers or UMass, even in state up there is $35,000 to $40,000. So if we were able to give a little bit of scholarship money for those, it still can be cheaper for them to come down here, play in the South, and still save a little bit of money for their family. So, we have pulled upon that, and our goal has been the whole time is that we thought we would have to go out of state early to get in state later on. And I think we're starting to make that shift where we're starting to get the higher quality players or the players that we want in state to come. So we haven't had to go out of state as often. But with that said, we've got a catcher coming in from New Jersey next year, and a shortstop coming in from out of state, and a pitcher coming in from Florida. So we still have some out of state, but let's say in a general class of 10 or 11, 7 or 8 of them are going to be in-state guys, and 3 or 4 are going to be some out-of-state high school guys. And then obviously we'll try to get a transfer or a JUCO guy every year as well.
Before we dive into this year's roster and specifically talk about what they do on the field, just talk about the craziness of the last 10 months and the way your team has maybe gotten better as a result of the adversity they've faced. That has been a common point that a lot of coaches have made, how they feel this year's club has been many, are much more close together than previous teams.
I would agree with that. As far as the team camaraderie or the team bonding, it's amazing. You'd never think that a Zoom call could help a team get closer, but the ability to have some of those Zoom calls last spring and through the summer a little bit, and we were fortunate enough this year that we actually were able to come back and have a normal, quote unquote, normal fall with some in class or in-person classes, some hybrid and some online. So our guys were able to kind of get that college experience again this fall, and we were very fortunate that we didn't have any shutdown, so we were able to get through our fall at a normal pace. So, we'll see how it goes. The last 2 weeks or 3 weeks has been a little bit crazy with guys coming back from being home for that 2-month stretch. So, we're trying to get some guys back healthy, whether it be injury or COVID related. We're trying to get some guys back healthy. We're not all the way back yet, but hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have our full roster back up and running.
Yeah, that's one thing, certainly even more so than a typical circumstance, where you would have the guys there on campus and hands-on, having a say in what's going on within your program in terms of development. This year, it's more on the individual, and that's something that our coaches have said as well. We're going to certainly find out who was committed and who was not.
Yeah, and we look at it and we tell our players it's more like a pro style setup now. All these guys have aspirations of wanting to go play pro ball. Well, unfortunately, if you do have that opportunity, you're your own best coach, and you got to be able to do a lot of things on your own and have your own drive to get better. And whoever said it, they're absolutely right. We're going to find out pretty quickly who has the drive and the will and wants to get better, and who does just enough to get by, and who didn't do anything. Coaches will see that in the first day or 2 of practice. We feel fortunate that we think our guys have done their jobs, but again, we won't really know until our first full team practice here on Friday, and when we get the full roster back, who really did and who didn't. And the best part is, as their teammates are going to know too, and the teammates are the ones that's the hardest one to disappoint. as your teammates when the guy next to you put in all the work and you didn't, and then you have to go back into the locker room or back to the dorm room and face them one-on-one. So those are the tough conversations. It's not necessarily always with the coaches. It's with your teammates that it can be tough.
Before we dive into specific players on the roster, just a general overview of the roster, just tell us, some of the numbers and the NCAA, obviously granted an additional year of eligibility to those guys who were on last year's club. So tell how that's all the craziness with the numbers. How's that going with university and so forth?
Well, for us, it's easy, to be quite honest, and you're probably going to be shocked by this one. We actually still only have 35. We are at a 35-man roster. We had 3 of our seniors graduate and 3 of our seniors come back to play their last year. And the reason why we are always going to be right around that 35, even next year, if something crazy does happen, is we don't really have a master's program here. So it's hard to convince, other players from another school to transfer in for the 5th year and not start working towards their masters. So we are right at our 35 number. And we will be right at our 35 number as of next year as well, even though we are allowed to go up to the 40 is what I'm hearing. I'm not sure if that's official yet or not, but so we're going to be right at our 35 number next year as well. I'm completely fine with that 35 as well. I know some schools this year have gone a lot higher, but I also think with our limited ability as far as coaching, only having 3 paid coaches and 1 assistant, it's hard to work with more than 35 and give them the true one-on-one attention that they need and that we hope for here at UNC Asheville to help them develop every year. So we're quite content with our 35 and again, we'll be at our 35 next year as well. So it helps also financially. We've all taken a financial hit and have to do some budget cuts. We know exactly where we're going to be for the next 2 years as far as roster sizes. So we can kind of plan our next 2 years financially.
Yeah, I learned something new. I did not realize that about UNCA as far as not having a graduate program. I was talking to Davidson head coach Rucker Taylor, and they're in a very similar situation.
Yeah. And, out of the state, like a good friend of mine is Todd Internato at Wofford, and they're the same way. A lot of, it happens to us all the time, whether it's a guy coming off an injury, Tommy John or something has that 5th year, they end up going that 5th year because, the goal is for our guys to graduate in 4 years and they're planning to do it. So, one of our guys is pitching at College of Charleston now, getting his MBA. So one is at ETSU, getting his physical therapy master's in PT. So, I'm proud of all those guys and I want them to enjoy their success. I'd love to have them 1 more year. Don't get me wrong, but the one master's that we offer is a master's of liberal arts. And that's not really what a lot of our guys are studying here. They're more of the business or the physical therapy here.
Coach, taking a look at your roster, let's start off with your pitching staff. I know you had a guy that you unfortunately lost, but to his credit and a good thing for the program moving forward, Blake Brown, a pitcher, signed a free agent deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. So that's something you can point to in recruiting. And so just talk about what you lost, what you returned, and specifically your weekend rotation, and then we'll dive into the bullpen.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned Blake. We had a legitimate Friday, Saturday number 1 type of guy, and you're right. It's huge for us as far as recruiting, and if the draft was 10 rounds rather than 5 rounds, he probably would have been drafted in the top 10 rounds. He had 30 offers the day after the draft was over, 30 free agent offers, and he chose the Phillies, and hopefully it was the right decision for him. So. Very proud, very proud of him. But we do return 2 of our other 3 starters. Junior left-handed pitcher Jacob Edwards, who was off to a good start for us last year, son of Jerry Edwards, who was the pitching coach at UNC Greensboro and is now at Jacksonville University. So Jacob, we are looking to be our Friday night guy for us. And when I say undersized, it's not strength. It's just pure height. He is hands down the strongest person on our team. But he's about a 5'9", 5'10" left-hander that runs it up 87, 88, 89. Will touch a 90, 91. But sits 87, 89. And, typical pitching coach's son. He's got 3 or 4 pitches that he can command and throw whenever he wants. And he is a very, very, very good college pitcher. And I hope he will have the opportunity to pitch at the next level because he can get people out at 90, 91 at any level. We have Ryan Douglas coming back, who was a freshman last year, and he was one of those top 100 according to Perfect Game college freshman last year. I think he was number 58 or 59. Don't quote me on that one. I don't know the exact number, but he's coming back. So we're looking to see great things out of Ryan. And then we have a couple guys vying for that number 3 spot, 1 or 2 freshmen, and then a junior college pitcher coming in Dawson Salter. There's probably 3 or 4 guys after the fall vying for that number 3 starter role. And then the 4th starter will obviously trickle down because the way our league is set up this year with 40 conference games, we have 4 midweek conference games on Tuesdays. So we'll need that 4th starter. It's going to be fairly important to us this year. We think we need where we need to be as far as the starting pitcher. And we think we are where we need to be as far as when it comes to the back end. We have Cole Harris, who is one of our seniors that came back for his 5th year, who is the school's all-time save leader. Even though we got shortened, he actually got it as a junior. And it's just, he's one of those guys that, again, won't light up the radar gun. He's going to be 88 to 91, but it is a 3-pitch command, and he can pitch every single day for us. So, he'll give us 1 or 2 innings and be able to bounce back in a day to give you 1 more inning, and then we'll give him that 3rd day off. But we're excited to have him back. And then the question mark, Bubba, like probably a lot of schools, is that middle relief. How do we get it to the 9th inning? And I think we're going to have to do a good job as a coaching staff of putting guys in good positions to have success depending on what is coming up in the opposing lineup. We don't necessarily have the 7th, 8th, 9th, or the 7th and 8th inning guy lined up. It is going to depend more on where they are in their lineup. We have the sidearm lefty, the sidearm righty. We have the velo guy, that's a 94, 95, but it's only a 1 inning. So we got to make sure it's a good spot for him to come in and kind of just let it go for those guys. So we're just going to have to kind of be a jigsaw puzzle when it comes to those 6th, 7th, and 8th innings. We think our starting pitchers will be able to give us 5 or 6. And that's what Ryan and Jacob Edwards did for us last year in their 4 or 5 starts. They both gave us 5 or 6 innings each time out. So we're hoping they can repeat that as well.
Shifting over and taking a look at your ball club positionally, just give us a Cliff Notes version, take us around the horn, what you can tell us coming out of fall. I don't know how much of a true fall practice you were able to have due to obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you know going into Friday and the first official practice.
Yeah, and one of the things I think did help that COVID did help was it actually forced us to move guys around to different positions. Instead of pigeonhole a guy in at second base, we had him play third base or left field for inter squads just because somebody might have been missing. So I think this year, now I'm knocking on wood, but if we are not struck with COVID, I think we have our best depth positionally in our 6 years here. We actually have 3 catchers that we think can play every day. MJ Lucas caught every game last year as a freshman because we had a guy injured that was a sophomore that caught a lot of games as a freshman the year before. So we have those 2 back and are healthy. And then we added another freshman switch hitter and Michael Groves that is a catcher, first baseman, left fielder. If his bat is playing, we're going to find a spot for him in the lineup. So we have depth there. We have Brandon Langford at third base, who was a freshman All-American. He's been all conference 2 times for us, and he's back for his 5th year. He was one of those guys coming back, and he was one of the guys we were going to lose last year if there was a 30 or 40 round in the major league draft. He was off to a good start, had 3 or 4 home runs, had 14 home runs as a junior. So he's our power bat 3-hole lineup. We have a junior college shortstop that came in last year, Sebastian Dunn, that played every game last year, but we also have a transfer from UNC Wilmington in Cole Abrams that will be vying for that position. Chris Trost has played our everyday shortstop, everyday second baseman, and is back for his 5th year. But we have 2 guys in Ty Kaufman and Cam Johnson that are going to be pushing him and Brandon Langford at the 3rd and 2nd base position. And then first base is Easton Jones, another junior college transfer last year that only got to play 14 games. So we'll have him back for another year as well. And then we lost our starting center fielder and probably our best hitter to graduation last year. Just decided not to come back because it was out of state and they just couldn't make it work. But we have our left fielder back and our junior college right fielder transferred in this year. So we've got about 5 or 6 outfielders vying for those 3 spots as well. So positionally, we're very happy where we are. Starting pitching, we think we're okay. Back end of the bullpen, we think we're okay. Our weakness and something that we're going to have to get better at and continue to develop our guys is that middle of the order, like we talked about, bullpen in those middle innings. But we're excited. We think we're going to be able to hit and play defense and give us ourselves a chance every single game. So we're excited about it, honestly. And then, with the shortened season where we're only actually playing, we're allowed to play 50 for the conference, but with cost savings, and we're going to play 45 games this year. And once we start our conference season, we're actually only going to play non-conference. So our guys have the mindset of, every single game is the most important game of their season. So, we're excited leading up to those 5 or 6 games to get into the season, and we're getting right after it.
Yeah, that was going to be, you read my mind, Coach. That was going to be where I was going next with the schedule, taking a look at things there. You talked about playing 40 games. And so I guess just doing the math, you're only playing 5 out of conference ball games.
Yeah, we're playing 5 non-conference games, all against the SoCon teams. We've got Western, East Tennessee State University, and then Wofford. And the big reason why we're doing it is, it's not necessarily us alone. It's the testing protocol for some of the other leagues is just making it a little too expensive for us to play, to be quite honest. And I don't blame those other leagues, and they got to make sure they take care of themselves. But, for us to go play in App State, or for us to go down and play Charlotte, or for us to go play Tennessee, we needed to test our entire team 72 hours before the game. And that's a $4,000 expense just to go play one game. So the SoCon and the Big South have very similar testing protocol, which makes it easy for us to play other teams in that, or the teams in that league. So if we are forced to miss a weekend because of COVID in conference, now we have the ability to add a midweek game against another Wofford, or play ETSU again, or play Western again, because I'm sure we're all going to be scrambling for some games. And then if some protocol lightens up or lessens a little bit towards the end of the year, then we can try to add an App State if we don't have to get tested, for 72 hours before the game, or a Charlotte. But it's the craziness is that there is no set testing protocol amongst the leagues. It's every league is different, and where we are financially as a university ourselves and as a conference, we're just not able to pay $4,000 just to play one single game. So that's the way we kind of had to set it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. A lot of strange logistics and so forth, dynamics that are being dealt with this year. But Coach, we appreciate the time, enjoyed the visit, and we look forward to having you back on down the road.
Awesome, Bubba. Thank you again for this opportunity. I love talking about our program and all of baseball in the state of North Carolina. I think it's one of the top 2 or 3 in the country, to be quite honest with you. So I'm excited to be a part of it.